has a very high rather in genetic stability. Properties of the stem cell. They migrate and engraft at damaged sites. So, kabalo ba mo na yung dugo natin, pag nasugatan ka dito, di ba may lalabas na dugo? Doon sa dugo mo, mayroong tinatawag yan, endothelial progenitor cells. Tapos yung dugo na yan, tapos isirado mo lang siya, lagyan mo ng band-aid, yung dugo na yon magiging skin ulit. No? So those are one example of a stem cell propagation within our body. So pag nasugatan ka, the Lord has provided our body with stem cell to regenerate the cells that are damaged in our body. Kaso lang kung large scale na, kailangan mo talaga i-develop yung stem cell na magiging organ. So, correct differentiation into appropriate tissue or cells. Then, they have functional benefits. They lack walang side effects kasi sarili mo eh. Ganito yan. Paano ka gumawa ng stem cell na iyo? Hihingi ka lang ng itlog galing doon sa neighbor mo, Ning, pahiram ng itlog mo, Ning. So, madali lang yan. The first day of menstruation is the second day of the estrous cycle. So, count ka. Pagka 14th day, lalabas yung itlog. Tapos yung itlog, bababa siya doon sa uterus 3 to 5 days. So, at the 14th day, magbilang ka na naman ng 3 days, lagyan mo ng kutsara doon na maliit, tapos makuha mo na yung itlog. Tapos tingnan mo sa microscope. Ang gagawin nun sa itlog, lalagyan siya ng, kukunin yung nucleus sa itlog na hiningi mo, tapos tanggalin yung nucleus ng itlog. Tapos, palitan mo siya ng nucleus na sarili mo. Ngayon, ipasok na yun doon, tapos sabihin mo naman doon sa babae, Ning, ilagay mo ulit natin sa womb mo para ma-develop into embryo. Pag ma-develop na into embryo, kunin na siya, tapos lahat ng cell doon sa embryo na yon, sa iyo na yon. So, magiging source of stem cell na iyo na yon. So, ibig sabihin, kung nangailangan ka ng therapy doon sa katawan mo, hindi ka na maghanap ng iba. Doon ka na kuha. Kasi pag makuha mo na yung stem cell sa embryo, pwede nang i-store sa refrigerator, sa freezer, -20 or -65, it could stay there for even 1,000 years. So grabe, no? Maganda, no? Maganda or magandang-maganda? I think the Lord has provided us this particular technology so that we will have the solution to our many dreaded diseases. Unspecialization, no? Stem cells are unspecialized. Walang pangalan. They do not have any tissue-specific structures that allow for specialized function. So, look at that. A stem cell, dividing stem cell, then they will divide into 2, and then you can now differentiate it into a particular, so you can cell on one side, pwede mong ipadami sila. On one side, you can get the factors now for the development of the tissue. Ganito yan. Sa katawan natin, ang ating katawan mismo ang nag-provide ng mga factors for the stem cell to develop into a particular tissue. Saan yan? Kung ang atay mo ay nangailangan, all you have to do is get a stem cell, put it in the liver, and that stem cell that is now implanted in the liver will soon become a liver. Because the proteins that are needed to make new proteins for the liver resides in the liver itself. So saan mo siya ilagay? Doon mo siya ilagay sa area ng nangailangan. Nakuha nyo? Nagets nyo ba? Wala or nagets? Oh, so tingnan mo. Na-differentiate into blood and then on the other side, you can have unlimited supply of stem cells. So yun ang kagandahan sa stem cell kasi pwedeng mong ipadami lang siya, unlimited, tapos pwede mong kuha ka ng isa doon, tapos i-convert mo siya into a tissue using a growth factor. So, specialization, differentiation. The specialized and unspecialized stem cells give rise to specialized differentiated organ or tissue. So, the external signals are the growth factors that comes from the cell itself. That's why in stem cell therapy, the best stem cell therapy is injection therapy. Do not believe in the stem cell na iniinom like ng portier. Kung nakarinig kayo ng portier. Stem cell, hindi yan stem cell. Hype lang yan. That is not the true stem cell. Because the true stem cell therapy is an injection therapy. So get a stem cell, inject it to the area of damage. That is the actual stem cell therapeutic. 30 minutes is over, so I will stop. Then question and answer. Because 30 minutes over, I don't want to overshoot the time. Wala pa? Sige. 10 minutes more. Okay. Pero lahat, nasabi ko na eh. Okay, so may mga stem cell natin sabing totipotent. The word toti means total. So there are stem cells that are called totipotent. Anong ibig sabihin ng totipotent stem cell? Totipotent stem cell are stem cells that can be developed to all the cell types in your body. And that comes from the embryo. So the embryonic stem cell is a totipotent cell. So the ability to differentiate into all cell types in the body can form any cell of the embryo as well as the placenta. So kaya ang placenta pwedeng source of stem cell. So look at that. Sa morula, yung nag-study ng embryology dito, sila Nancy Murada. Nancy, naka-remember ka pa ba ng morula stage? Ang morula stage, yung egg have developed into several cells, have duplicated already. So that is one example of a totipotent cell, stem cell. So mayroon din tinatawag na pluripotent stem cells. Itong pluripotent has the ability to differentiate into almost all. Ang totipotent, all. Pero ang totipotent, almost lang, almost all. So, mayroong hindi niya kaya. Tapos, mayroong induced pluripotent stem cells. So, stem cell types, multipotent, differentiate into multiple specialized cells of a closely related family of cells. Hematopoietic stem cells. Yung ating dugo, 'di ba? Mayroon tayong red blood cell, mayroon tayong white blood cell, mayroon tayong platelets. Lahat iyan ay nanggagaling sa bone marrow. Tapos, yan ang tinatawag na hematopoietic cell. Yung stem cell na yan will differentiate first to the myeloid cells. Ang myeloid cells, yun ang magiging source ng red blood cell, white blood cell. Ang lymphoid cell, on the other side, will now become the T cell and the B cell. What is the difference between a T cell and a B cell? Sabi mo, ang isa sir, T, ang isa B. Pero ang word na T was taken from the word thymus. Thymus. Ang thymus mo, kapain mo yung breast mo, may bone dyan, no? May bone dyan sa center, sternum. Sa ilalim niyan, yun ang thymus. Pag dumaan yung dugo mo na galing sa bone marrow, pag dumaan doon sa thymus mo, magiging T-cell yan. Ang example sa T-cell is the helper killer T-cells. Mabito ng fermentation, kung mayroon kang fever or kasakit ka or trangkaso, lagyan mo na ng fomentation. Ano bang fomentation? Yung towel na mainit, tapos ano mo dito sa breast mo. Your stem cells will be converted into human natural killer T cells. Kaya pala, pag mayroon kang infection, tumataas ang temperature mo sa fever. Huwag kang mag-alala, yung fever na iyon, ginawa pala ng Lord na may fever yon para dumami yung stem cell mo. Para kakainin na ng white blood cell yung nag-cause ng fever mo. So, alam mo, imagine ka, yung fever, the fever itself is an instrument by God for you to be able to recover. So, fever is a way of recovering your sakit. So, huwag kang mag-alala kung mayroon kang fever because that is God-given natural healing process. Okay, time na? Okay, time na. Question answer na. Kasi nasabi ko na lahat eh. Nasabi ko na lahat. So, tingnan mo dito sa diagram na yan, yung blood cell. So, yung blood cell na yan, hematopoietic stem cell, nagiging progenitor cell, tapos ang progenitor cell, magiging T lymphocyte and B lymphocyte. Sa Tagalog, ang bituka is, ang intestine is bituka. Kung ang iyong dugo ay dadaan sa bituka mo, magiging B cell, kaya bituka. Pero ang tunay na niyan, yung bituka na yan, ang term yan is bursa. Bursa is only found in birds, but bursa equivalent to human is the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. Kaya yung appendix mo, yung tonsil mo, yung spleen mo, yan ang source ng production ng B cell. So, tingnan mo dito, ang progenitor cell, nagiging basophils, white blood cell yan, eosinophil, neutrophil, at saka monocyte. Ang monocyte, magiging macrophage na yung kumakain ng mga bacteria at virus. So, kung huwag kayo mag-alala, the Lord has provided us stem cell in our bone marrow. And then we have here the progenitor cell. It becomes a megakaryocyte. Itong megakaryocyte magiging source ng platelets. Tapos yung progenitor cell become the source of red blood cell. So red blood cell, platelets, you have the white blood cell, and you have the monocytes, T and the B cell. Sige, question and answer. Sige, question. Any question? Meron kayong question? Dalawa lang ang mangyari kung walang question. It's either wala kayong naintindihan or naintindihan nyo lahat. Naintindihan nyo ba yung lecture ko? Tinatagalog ko para talagang ma-express in. So, any question, sir?
May concern lang pa ako, sir. And I would question.
Yes.
Alexander Mateo po from North Philippine Union Conference.
Yes.
Usually, dialysis
Patient with
and renal stage have problems with kidney donors because of the rejection in cross-matching.
Yes.
And it costs millions of pesos for them to be transplanted. Do we have organ transplants undergoing stem cell therapy?
Yes. There are many already in the United States.
About here in the Philippines, sir?
Not yet. Ang kaya lang sa Philippines ang bone marrow transplant.
So which is more costly? Is it the normal transplant or the stem cell?
Ang normal transplant, ang problem dyan is tissue rejection. Pero ang stem cell transplant has no problem because it is your own stem cell. So unang-una, gagawan ka muna ng stem cell. Kung ikaw yung may sakit, kukuha muna ako ng nucleus sa iyo, hihiram ako ng itlog ng babae, tapos ipasok tapos i-develop yung... by the way, from the day of fertilization, magbilang ka ng 1 to 1, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th day. Pagdating ng 6th day, saka na mabuo yung tinatawag natin na embryonic stem cells. So, pwede ka nang gumawa ng enormous supply of embryonic stem cells. Tapos yung embryonic stem cells na iyon, gagawa na kayo ng kidney cells. Kasi pwede mo nang gagawa ng kidney cells. Pag ma-develop na yung kidney cells, actually ang kidney cells, ang ma-develop siya in 12 weeks. 12 weeks. So pag wakag stem cell, gagawin mo siyang kidney in 12 weeks. Pag magiging kidney na siya, tapos yun ang itatransplant doon sa pasyente. Nakuha? Nakuha mo? Any other question? Ang kagandahan ng stem cell therapy, no rejection. Kasi sarili mo eh. Question? Sige. Question na.
Good morning, Doc. As a health practitioners, we are so concerned with the ethical issues between the cloning because it deals with life. So in our Christian perspective as a Seventh-day Adventist, what are our stand as
Yun din ang tanong ko eh. Yun nga ang reason na bakit nag-form ako ng Philippine Association of Adventist Scientists. Para itong mga scientists na ito, yun ang mag-evaluate objectively kung itong mga technology na available ngayon is acceptable within our religious standard. Para sa akin, as a scientist ako eh, outstanding scientist of the Philippines. Ngayon, para sa akin, I think the issue is the Lord will allow that because that is actually saving life. And there is conflict because you are making a stem cell of your own.
I think the issue is the abortion of fetus, but with the IPS, no more issue, no more ethical.
Oh, okay. So the issue here actually is the ethical issue, yung pagtanggal ng embryo. Oo, kasi yung embryo kasi if you are going to remove the embryo, that is already tantamount to killing.
Yeah.
Pero sarili mo yun eh. Ikaw yun eh. Ikaw yun eh. So, ang sabi ko nga kanina sa introduction ko, if the technology sa motor vehicle, if we have spare parts, so I think the Lord will be happy if we have also spare parts for the human organs. Kaya ang total human cloning was not permitted in the federal government of America. But organ cloning was permitted. Organ cloning is different from total cloning.
So I think the issue before was that cells from the embryo, you've got to abort the embryo in order to get the stem cells. And so there was this Yamanak, the IPS or the induced pluripotent stem cell.
Kay Dr. Yamanaka, pwedeng gamitin yung induced pluripotent cells.
And
Walang violation sa ethics doon.
Because
Walang violation sa ethics doon. Kasi yung
Mature.
yung bilbil mo, i-convert lang siya into pluripotent cells.
yes, using
Pag
transcription
ma-convert na siya
factors.
using growth factors, pag na-convert na siya into pluripotent stem cells, doon ka na kukuha ng organ development para magiging organ transplant. Kuha?
So
Naintindihan?
no more issue on stem cell these days because our scientists are figuring out on how to eliminate the embryo abortion in order to help retain and maintain and recover health issues like severe disorders.
Actually ang may ethics issue ang paggawa ng embryonic stem cell. Pero ngayon may technology na any part of your blood or yung sabi ko kanina sa bilbil, yung ating mesenchymal stem cells, pwedeng gawin nga induce pluripotent cells and then from there, you can make an organ of yourself. Okay? So wala nang ethical issues doon. Para sa akin, as a scientist, I would like to subscribe because the Lord has given us the wisdom in order for us to solve our human problems. Kitagaan tag wisdom sa Ginoo eh. As a scientist, kitagaan mig wisdom sa Ginoo para to help mankind in solve our health problems that are dreaded and are making suffering for our human population. Any more question? Sige, kung mayroon pang question, kasi supposed to be ang lecture ko 1 hour, ginawa ko na lang 30 minutes kasi sabi nila 30 minutes daw. What are the?
You mentioned about these ideas that induced meaning immature cell can revert back into an immature, undifferentiated cell that would be an intestine, heart, skin.
Correct.
So, what are those factors? And are those factors
Available.
No, are those factors cancer? Are those factors cancer causing when they get, into above basal level? Can you explain more on that?
Okay, ang induced pluripotent stem cell, ito ang tandaan ninyo. Ang lahat ng mga factors for inducement into stem cell is nandiriyan sa ating dugo. So mag-extract, usually sa experience ko, nag-extract kami ng dugo, tapos kumuha kami ng tinatawag na PRP. PRP means plasma-rich proteins, which will mix it with the stem cell, and that stem cell will now become an induced pluripotent stem cell. So yun ang magiging procedure. Simple raman. Actually parang mahirap, pero actually stem cell therapy is a very simple. Ang problema lang sa stem cell therapy ganito. What if tinanim ko yung stem cell doon sa area sa organ mo na may cancer cell? Yung stem cell na yun magiging cancer din. Yun ang problema. So, kailangan proper screening talaga. Kung cancer-free ba or wala. Kasi kung cancer contaminated yung pasyente, tapos nag-stem cell ka, pag implant mo ng stem cell doon, bagamat sa iyo yun, pero pag doon sa implanted site, mayroong cancer cell, maski isa lang. Yung stem cell na tinanim ko, magiging cancer din. Yun ang mga downside ng stem cell therapy. Otherwise, stem cell therapy is perfect intervention against what you call this degenerative diseases. Okay? Mayroon pang ibang question? Yes. Come over para marinig nila yung tanong mo.
Look, I'm Eliazar from MVC. My concern is on the genetic stability of the stem cell. You mentioned that there is a higher genetic stability.
High yield and genetic stability.
Yeah, but it's not perfect. So my question would be, if there is a genetic instability that occurs, what would be the significant effect to the person? Because as far as I know, in plants, following the same process, plants is prone to genetic stability or instability. So I just want to know
in literature, genetic instability is due to lack of nucleotides. Ang nucleotides are, science teachers mo, no? Adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. So in order for that stem cell to be very stable, then you have to supply it with supplement of nucleotides for the perfect genetic stability of that stem cell.
Okay, Doc.
Nucleotides.
But if ever, Doc, there would be because a genetic stability is not perfect 100%, even though it's high, but if there's a possibility that this genetic instability occur to human, what would be the side effect?
O kung mayroong genetic instability, then it will make cancer cell. Yun ang problema. Kaya yung cancer cell, that is due to genetic instability. And what is the number one source of genetic instability? Lack of nucleotides. Kaya kung kayo ay kumain ng isda or karne or kaya tanim, you have to chew it 32 times in order to get the nucleotides. Ang pinakamaraming nucleotides na supply, yung bulalo. Yung sa ilalim ng bulalo, maraming nucleotides yon. So kung kung vegetarian ka, vegan ka, like Dr. Antimano, kailangan i-tune niya i-tune niya masyado yung string beans o wagyu beans several times. Ang problema lang kasi sa atin, 2 kit-kit lang swallow na kaagad, di ba? So ang the best na gawin nyo para makuha nyo lahat ang nucleotides, lagay mo lahat yung pagkain doon sa blender. Lagay mo yung isda or yung vegetable. Tapos i-blender mo, makukuha mo yung perfect nucleotides kung may saliva. So lagyan mo na lang yung saliva. Tapos i-blend. So yun. Instead na mag-chew ka several times. Kasi kung mag-chew ka several times, yung breakfast mo, mag-start na ng 6 o'clock in the morning. If you chew it 32 times, matapos mo yung isang plato mo in 9 o'clock, late ka na. So whereas kung mag-blender ka, pwedeng ilagay mo lahat pagkain doon, lagyan mo pa ng saliva, tapos i-serve mo na sa mga kaibigan mo. Kain na kayo. Okay? So, blender, ha? Anyway, na-estorizer naman tayo. Don't worry, it's your saliva. Maliban lang kung may sakit ka. Pero pag healthy ka, don't worry. Ang saliva natin, maraming vitamin B3 and B6. So kung nangailangan ka ng vitamin B, pahingi doon sa kaibigan mo, sa roommate mo. Okay? Mukhang marami ng question. Salamat sa inyong question, ha. I'm elated. Medyo tuwa ako, ibig sabihin, mayroon kayong naintindihan. One more question daw. Grabe yung question ng genetic instability. Geneticist ka ba? Sino ba yung question ng genetic instability? Nagtuturo ka ng genetics? Plant cytogenetics? Sige, maintindihan kita. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Automatically na naghahanap ng paracetamol. True or false? Ayan. Ano po ang mangyayari kapag 'di ba umiinom ng paracetamol? Magaling na ganon. Ano po yung
Ang consequence ganito.
Yes, sir.
Kung may fever ka, ganito kasi ang fever. Fever is induced by what you call the interleukin 1. Pag mayroong sugat ang katawan mo, papasok si bakterya. Pag pumasok na si bakterya, kakainin na ng macrophage. Ang macrophage ay phagocytes. Tapos yung macrophage na yan, gagawa siya ng interleukin, tapos ilabas niya sa dugo. Tapos pagdating sa hypothalamus ng brain natin, ang hypothalamus will adjust the temperature to higher temperature. Kaya nagka-fever tayo. Pag uminom ka ng paracetamol, dinidestroy ng paracetamol ang interleukin 1. So pag na-destroy yung interleukin 1, hindi ka na magka-fever. Pero mababa ang natural killer T cells mo. Ang effect kasi ng high fever, ginawa ng Lord yan, ang high fever, para dumami ang natural killer T cells ng katawan mo.
ang problema, Doc, meron naman kapag nasosobran as ng fever, ay nagko-convulsion, ay nakakamatay naman yun.
No, all you need to do kung mataas na ang temperature, kukuha ka lang ng ice, water, tapos mayroong labakara, tapos ano mo lang dito. Kasi ang importante lang na bababa ang temperature sa brain para walang convulsion.
Regardless of age, Doc.
Regardless of age, yes.
Thank you. That is a very big takeaway today. Thank you.
So, don't worry. Fever is a natural healing process. Kaya ang fomentation will help your body produce the white blood cells. Kabalo ka, alam mo ba, na pag mainitan yung thymus mo dito, it will multiply your T cells by 300 times. Kaya kung mayroon kayong opportunity na makaligo sa hot spring, do it because hot spring is a natural healing mechanism for our body.
Kaya nung nag-COVID, ay yung ano na to? Hindi, yung in-injection tayo. Nung nag-vaccine, ang natural reaction is may fever yung mga tao na na-vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oo. Para dumami ang natural killer T cell para maka-fight yung katawan mo.
Thank
Any other question? Pero last question na daw yun eh. Thank you very much and good morning.
Thank you very much. Let's return up here.
Well, we are really very grateful to Dr. Oclarit for your presentation and also for responding to the different questions that were addressed this morning. So it gives us hope that we have spare parts, as you have mentioned. So kaming medyo wala ng buhok, may pag-asa pa ba, Dr. Oclaret? Mayroon, ha? Okay. So it's an enjoyable kind of lecture. We profit a lot. So we are very, very happy. You know, the Bible is affirming to that lecture that we are wonderfully and fearfully made. So we are so unique. So thank you very much, Dr. Oclarit. And on behalf of Southern Asia Pacific Division, we would like to express our thanks and gratitude in serving as the President of Association of Adventist Scientists and also serving the Education Department. You know, they are also visiting schools. They're sharing lectures. So that's the ministry of the PAS. So at this juncture, Dr. Brian will read the certificate of appreciation.
Yes, thank you. The Southern Asia Pacific Division of the Seventh-day Adventist Church Education Department presents this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Jose Oclarit for importing your valuable insights as one of the guest speakers during the Tri-Union Science Educators and Adventist Scientists Conference held on August 4 to 6, 2022 at Mountain View College with the theme, Integration of Creation Science in Teaching. Your worthy presentation has affirmed and fortified the faith of the Seventh-day Adventist Church on the doctrine of creation as a fundamental anchor of the science of salvation. Given the 6th day of August 2022 at Mountain View College, Valencia City, Bukidnon. Signed by Dr. Bienvenido G. Margal and Brian Sumendap, both Director and Associate Directors, and Pastor Roger Cadema, President of SSD.
Thank you.
Thank you po. Thank you.
Okay, before the next presenter, allow me to share this announcement. The next lecturer, unfortunately, cannot be with us this morning. So, at least considering tightness of our time, we were able to extend. That's why we allowed more questions for the time of Dr. Oclarit. I would like to announce that for the education directors, the superintendents of the schools that are here. At 11:30, we will be having our meeting together with Mrs. Darlene Adap. And there are also other issues that we are going to consider. While the rest will go to the cafeteria and, have your lunch so that you can again be ready for this afternoon session. So please be reminded, education directors of the 3 unions, the superintendents, and if there are principals who are around, we would appreciate that very much if you can be with us. There are pressing issues that we have to discuss. Last night, we ended about 11:30 having meeting with the Geoscience Research Institute, and I would like to share some issues related to our mission for this quinquennium. So kindly take note of that. We will make sure that we will end our meeting at 11:30. Thank you.
Happy morning, everyone. Our next speaker today hails from Awag City. She is a product of Mountain View College in 1981, where she finished her Bachelor of Science in Education, major in Biology. After her graduation in 1981, she became a high school teacher of Southern Masbate Academy in 1981 to 1982. Then, a head teacher of Salcedo Adventist Elementary School in 1982 to 1984. And in 1985 to 1989, she was the head teacher of Tacloban Adventist Elementary School. In 1989 to 2008, she was called to serve our very own college in Central Philippine Union Conference, known as Central Philippine Adventist College, as Science Laboratory Supervisor and Biology and Science teacher. Later, she became the Dean of School of Education in 2007 to 2008. Then, in 2008 to 2013, she was called to serve our Adventist University of the Philippines, known as, in short as AUP, in Silang, Cavite, as Program Coordinator for Master of Arts in Education, major in Biology. Then in 2008 to 2010, she became the Assistant Dean of College of Arts and Sciences and Technology, which later became the Department Chair of the Graduate of Education of AUP in 2011 to 2013. In June 2012 to December 2012 of that same year, she was the OIC Dean of College of Education. And in May 2011 to October 2013, she became the Director of Center of Graduate Studies. She was also the head editor for thesis dissertation from June 2014 to the present. Vice Chair for Academic Administration Council from June 2014 to the present. Then she became the chairperson for Oral Defense Committee for Graduate Studies in May 2011 up to the present of AUP. From November 2013 to the present, she served as the Assistant Vice President for Academics for Graduate Studies of AUP. Her other work experiences includes being a member of the Regional Quality Assessment Team of the Commission on Higher Education of Region 4A, She is also an accreditor of AXCO ACI and a national peer reviewer of the University of Batangas Research Journal. She has also conducted lectures within the denomination and even outside our denomination. She has been a teacher, or she has a teaching experience both in the graduate and undergraduate level in both local and international. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to present to you that she is happily married to our very own SSD Education Director, Dr. Ben Mergal. Help me welcome our next speaker, Dr. Vicky Mergal, in her topic, Strategies in Teaching Science in the New Normal.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very glad to be with you this morning, and I'm feeling excited, trying to reminisce two things this morning. Okay? I'd like to make a confession regarding my reminiscence. First, I'm trying to reminisce my college days at Mountain View College. I can remember all the experiences I had as a working student. But I'm very grateful that it is also in MVC where I found my husband. Okay, so I'm trying to recall the different places where we were coupled together. So that's an excitement. So advertisement lang yun. Okay. Yeah, up to that only. Okay, another reminiscence, of course, is I can identify myself with our Adventist educators. My experiences in teaching started from teaching in the multi-grade school to the academy to the college and the graduate level. So I can now imagine, I'm trying to imagine now myself several years ago. Hindi ko lang sasabihin, baka you will know my age. But of course, you know that I have already worked so hard in teaching. I started teaching, and hopefully I will end my career and retire as a teacher. So hindi ko lang sasabihin kung kailan. But I'm trying now to imagine myself teaching in the elementary, first grade. Grabe, multi-grade, no? Multi-grade level. Experience lang muna ha. Anyway, I have, ilang oras ba to? It's only 10 o'clock. Wala tayong isang speaker eh. So it's only 10 o'clock, and then we will end at 11:30, so 1.5 hours ang lecture ko. Hindi pa naman 1.5 hours. Kasi I tried to shorten nung pinagbawasan ko ng mga slides only to find out na wala palang speaker na after ni Dr. Oclaret. So mag-experience lang muna ako, testimony, mga 5 minutes lang. I'm trying to recall now myself, teaching in the elementary, being new in the teaching profession, first year of teaching, elementary pa, multi-grade pa, 1 to 3 in the district. Multi-grade, so I can imagine myself, nagasayaw-sayaw ka from grade 1, lipat ka sa grade 2. We are very fortunate now because we now have solid grades, although may mga siguro pa nagtuturo ng multi-grade ngayon, Pero it's not as difficult during our times kasi we now have the kinder 1, kinder 2. Sa time namin, wala. Daycare lang, pero optional pa. So you welcome grade 1 students with parents of no read, no write, especially sa sa district, no, sa mga baryo. So, I can imagine myself, sayaw ka, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Buti lang kung 2 grades lang, pero 3 grades pa. Okay, so I can imagine our teachers. So I'm not identifying myself. In fact, in my first teaching, sabi ko sa husband ko, ayaw ko nang magturo. Sasabihin lang niya, kaya mo yan. Kasi my preparation is education, as you heard me, no? Bachelor of Science in Education. So iba talaga yung element, yung multi-grade. But I'm very thankful of the Adventist education in our place because I'm a product of a multi-grade school. Okay, advertisement lang. Okay, now let me go to my presentation. I cannot give you all my experiences kasi that's not the intent for my presentation this morning. Okay? Ang intent is to give you a lecture. And the topic assigned to me is strategies in science teaching in the new normal. Before I present, I'd like to give you the background on how this title was conceptualized. During the pandemic, I had an advisor who was an advisee who was taking MAED in biology education. And I was the advisor. So, even if it's pandemic, we endeavored to conduct a research study. And the title of the research study is, iba to ha, hindi siya lab-oriented, gaya ng present ng dalawang presenters. It's more on the education setting. Pero tomorrow afternoon, it will be lab-oriented. It's an experimental study, which I will be presenting also. Okay? So this study was entitled Influence of Teaching Competence and Classroom Management Practices on the Learning Motivation of Students. Okay? So, you will notice that the major variables included were teaching competence, classroom management practices, and learning motivation. And for each of the variables, under teaching competence, mas maganda siguro dito ko sa baba, hindi ko makita. Mamaya na lang ako akyat. Okay? The indicators for each variable under teaching competence is field competence. Meron pala dyan. Field competence. Okay? So, their competence in the field. And, of course, the second one is knowledge of subject matter. So, those are the two indicators for the variable under teaching competence. And then, for classroom management practices, we have two indicators, teaching strategies and classroom management strategies. And learning motivation has two indicators, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I will not be expounding on this because that's not the focus. However, I'd like to show you the results of the study. Okay? By the way, the respondents of this study was, they were teachers, public school teachers teaching in the K-12 STEM. You know, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So they were high school students. So these high school students are coming from different public schools in Cavite, Batangas, and Laguna. So there are only 3 provinces, public schools. Okay? And what were the results of the study? Teaching competence is high. The measurement or the scale of measurement that was used was the Likert scale. So we have a scale of 1 to 5. 1, very low, high, 2 is low, 3 is average, 4 is high, and 5 is very high. So they are almost to number 5. No, it's 4. Teaching competence is high. Teachers highly practice classroom management practices. And for the inferential results, we have teaching competence is significantly related to the learning motivation of the students. What does it mean? The competence of the teachers has a relationship to how the students are being motivated. And classroom management practices is significantly related to the learning motivation of the students. So you will notice here that there are two independent variables, the teaching competence and the classroom management practices. And the dependent variable would be the learning motivation of the students. Okay? So we can really see here that the two independent variables are related to the learning motivation of the students. So it simply implies that the motivation of the students to learn is what? Influenced by our competence, it's influenced by our teaching competence and the practices that we have in classroom management. And what are the moderator variables? Sex and socioeconomic status are the ones that were only considered. We did not consider the age of the students because, they belong to the same grade level. There's no great disparity of ages. So we did not consider that. However, we found out that these two demographics did not moderate the influence of these two variables to the dependent variable. And lastly, it was found out that learning motivation are being predicted by field competence and teaching strategies. So you will notice that in the indicators, teaching strategies and field competence predict learning motivation. I will not give you the whole picture of the study. I will be presenting this in an International Scholars Conference in AIU, which is being prepared by, of course, there are 4 Adventist schools who have agreed in AMOA to have Scholars Conference. So I'll be presenting this. So if you would really want to know more about this, I'm inviting you to join us, okay? So with regards to this finding that we have, it was only defended last December. So it's very recent. It was gathered during the time of pandemic, no? Okay, so basing on these results, then I have conceptualized on a study entitled, in the program, it's only New Normal, no? But I have modified it. And the title now is Strategies in Teaching Science in the New Normal, Now Normal, and Next Normal. Hopefully, there will still be next normal, no? Okay, so new normal, during the time of the pandemic, we were always saying, this is now the new normal, new normal. Now we are moving to face-to-face already, okay? So August, we all will be moving to the face-to-face, except for some, no? There are still some who are doing the online or hybrid or whatever. So that is now the now normal, okay? We are now moving towards the now normal with all the face mask and all this. And of course, next normal. Bakit next normal? Meron pa bang next normal? Hopefully, sana wala na, no? Babalik ng Panginoon, no? But we will not know what will happen in the next normal, okay? So, the question is online learning the future of education? What's your answer? Maybe? You don't think so? Okay. For me, you know what? I don't want the online learning to be the future of education. As an Adventist educator, why? Remember that the goal of Adventist education is to develop the holistic part of the student. Physical, mental, social, emotional, right? If you have the online learning, what will happen? You may only have the mental development of the student because it's online. How will you deal with the physical, the social relationship? Of course, spiritual, pwede naman virtual. Pero iba pa rin yung face-to-face. Okay? Okay. So, for me, I don't want, but we cannot hold. No circumstances would all be there. Okay. Now, in the new normal, we have been practicing different learning modalities. Distance learning was very common. When we talk about distance learning, there are also so many modes, online, modular, and we would even have asynchronous, synchronous, and all those terms, okay? So, for distance learning, we have the different forms we have practiced, no? Blended learning, which we also call the hybrid learning, and you know what? I find it difficult, no? we are doing such kind of modality in AUP. And, it's hard. Siguro, maganda kung pure online na lang or pure face-to-face. Kasi pag mag-hybrid ka sa practice namin in AUP, mag-hybrid ka, nag-face-to-face ka sa ibang estudyante, na-video ka, tinitingnan ka ng ibang estudyante, nag-online. And then sometimes, ang focus mo, nasa mga face-to-face mo, kung minsan, nakakalimutan mo yung nasa online, di ba? Those are some feedbacks, no? So for me, it's difficult. No? And siguro ang teacher dapat maging proactive na hindi niya mapabayaan yung online, hindi rin niya mapabayaan yung face-to-face, di ba? Okay, so blended learning, it's a combination of electrical, electronic, and online media, as well as traditional face-to-face teaching would combine online materials and opportunities for interaction. We also have TV or radio-based. And we have the homeschooling. Homeschooling, again, pwedeng modular. Pwede rin fully asynchronous. Ang daming mga terms. And I do not know what happened later on. In the next normal, what will it be? We will see. Okay, and of course, the most common learning modality we have, the face-to-face. Okay? So, blended learning. I will not give you an example for that anymore. I have discussed that. And so this morning, since we are science teachers, my focus is on science instruction. However, even if I would only be focusing on science instruction, I know that this is applicable even to other disciplines, di ba? Other disciplines like mathematics, actually, science and math magkapatid. If they say science na, ikaw pa, mathematics, parang magkapatid talaga sila. But history, social science, English, Filipino, we may be able to apply this also. Okay? But since I'm a science teacher, I'll be focusing on a certain model. There are so many models of science instruction. In fact, we also have the 4 model. But I have been using the 5 E's in science teaching. What are these 5 E's? We have engage, explore, explain, extend, evaluate. So we have the 5 E's in science learning. Applying these 5 E's in the now normal, we as instructors, not only instructors, even students, we are now returning to classrooms on campuses, and with our strong desire to go to normalcy, with the 2 years of being in Zoom meetings, Google Meet, MS Teams, or whatever learning management system we had, or platforms that we had, we have, as if it's now difficult for us to move into the face-to-face. Nasanay na tayo, nag-online, nakaupo ka lang, hindi nga alam ng estudyante, nakabihis ba tayo o hindi, no? And then, hindi natin alam yung estudyante natin kung anong ginagawa, nagmo-multitasking, nag-attentive ba siya, okay? So, we as teachers, rather than starting immediately into the, what do you call this? The usual, the face-to-face, then we should take inventory of what went well during the emergency remote teaching, as well as what they missed most about in in-person teaching when they were apart from their students, okay? So, let's try now to talk about all of this. Now, whether you are teaching in the elementary, in the high school, or in the college, these strategies are applicable, okay? The only difference is the way we would try to implement it. Why? Our goal is still the same. Our goal is still the same. So the way we would implement this would just differ, but the strategies are all the same. So let me start. Let me give you a short history of what the 5E instructional model is. Okay? This was formulated, this model was formulated. It's an instructional model for constructivism and was formulated by the Biological Science Curriculum Study. And it's called the 5Es. And this is a planning tool for inquiry teaching that provides a structure for students to connect science ideas with their experiences and apply their learning to the new context. It is based upon cognitive psychology, constructivist theory to learning, and best practices in STEM instruction. Okay, so STEM instruction. The five e-learning cycles would lead students through these 5 phases: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. By the way, before I proceed, my presentation on these strategies has 3 phases. So I'm now starting with the first phase, wherein I'm talking about the specific phases that are involved when we have science instruction. This will be followed by a short overview of the integration of faith and learning. I'm sure that the SPUC teachers had a colloquium on integration of faith and learning. I think it wouldn't matter if we will just have a very short review, mga 3 to 5 minutes lang, no? We will be having a short review on what the integration of faith and learning is. And the last part, which I think is the most important, is the strategies on how to integrate faith and learning in science instruction. Okay? So that's our focus because we are Adventist teachers. So we will now try to find out how we will blend these different 5 E's as we teach science in the integration of faith and learning. Okay, so what are the benefits of the 5E lesson? It engages students in critical thinking skills. The students learn to self-regulate their learning. Teachers reimagine their role as facilitators. Okay, we are no longer teachers, we are no longer managers in the classroom, but our role is facilitator. So we imagine our role as facilitators of learning through questioning, discovering, and designing opportunities to explore science concept. It engages students in scientific content than a traditional lesson format. And it strengthens students' inquiry skills to promote a lifelong practice of scientific investigation. Okay, so let's start with phase 1, engage. What do we do when we want to engage our students? Even if I will not discuss this or everything here, I know you know what it means when you say engage. First, you need to engage your students, and that's motivation, no? You see, in the study that I presented, learning motivation among the students is very high. So we need to what? Motivate. By the way, we are planning to do another study on SATs, no? Teaching competence and what? Teaching competence and learning motivation, classroom management practices among our Adventists, because this one was only conducted in public schools. So how is it also? What is the picture in our Adventist institution? We are planning to do that. And of course, we have to widen it through the integration of faith and learning in our science instruction. Okay? So we need to what? Create interest, especially science. You know, one of the misconceptions of science is when you talk about science, puros na lang daw memorization. Totoo ba yun? Ha? Magturo ka ng biology, magturo ka ng, ano pa ba yung mga anatomy, magturo ka ng general science. Ang concept talaga, especially sa college, sabi nila, puros lang daw memorization. So sometimes the students are not, what they call this, motivated, no? Kasi puros lang memorize, so ang nakakakuha lang daw ng high scores ang yung magaling mag-memorize. Totoo ba, Ma'am Rowena? No. Yeah, because it involves critical thinking skills. Okay. So, what do we do with this stage, no? The stage 1. Teachers demonstrate something that captures the attention of their students. Okay? And stimulate questions, show them something that contradicts their expectations, or simply ask a direct question about the topic they can throw themselves into. For example, what past experience do they have with what's being covered? What do they think about it? What ideas do they already have? Okay, so we are now trying to open up giving them opportunity to express themselves on what they know about the concept. And of course, what is the outcome of the engagement phase? Prior learning and misconceptions have been drawn out. So makuha natin yung mga misconceptions na nila. And the students are hopefully freezing with puzzlement, intrigue, and motivation to find answers. The second phase is explore. Exploring. What do the students do here? They work together without direct instruction from the teacher. The teacher acts as a facilitator and helps students to ask questions and observe. Students should be puzzled. Students test predictions and hypotheses and/or form new ones. Try alternatives and discuss them with peers, record observations and ideas, and suspend judgment. Okay? So, exploration is an engagement. It's trying to reinforce the engagement that you did in the first phase. Okay? So, what is students notice patterns, establish causal or correlative relationships, identify differences, and question why they're experiencing the results they find. The teacher's role is to initiate activities, provide resources, listen, ask questions, and facilitate students as they begin to construct conceptual understandings and develop new skills. So what is the outcome of this exploration phase? The students are able to discuss what they experienced. Okay, so during the process from the engagement up to this point, they can now start discussing what their experiences are, and then they can also talk about patterns or phenomena they had observed during this phase. So what do you need to do here? Maybe you can organize the students into groups and then get them to explore the concepts and the skills before you form questions that can be investigated. Okay? And then after that, they may present and defend their strategy of approach later on. Okay, the next phase is explain. Okay? Explain. They can, at this phase, the students will now explain concepts in their own words. Okay? Ask for evidence and clarification of their explanation. Listen critically to one another's explanation and those of the teacher. Students use observations and recordings in their explanations. Teachers provide definitions and explanation using students' previous experiences as a basis for this discussion. Okay? So the teachers support the students to develop scientific explanations by drawing from experiences and observations. Okay? Concepts and ideas the students have taken from the engagement and exploration phase come to light. So in other words, it is at this phase now where they are enlightened regarding the concepts that they have learned during the engagement phase. They're enlightened regarding the concepts that they have found out during the exploration phase. So what is the outcome of this explanation phase? The students may not immediately fit their experiences to the explanation because science understanding takes time, but they can make connections from their experiences to the explanations that they have. Okay, then the next phase is elaborate or extend. Students should apply concepts and skills in the new but similar situations. What do they use here? They use previous information to ask questions. So the informations they have gathered from the engagement, from the exploration are now being applied here. So they have to use the previous information to ask questions, propose solutions, and make decisions, experiment, and record observations. What else are being done here? Since it's elaboration or extension of what they have learned, what they can do here also is the students can discuss and compare their ideas with one another. Okay? They transfer their understanding. Oh, this is what I understood. How about you? What is your understanding? This is what I learned. What is your understanding? Now, so transferring their ideas, new science concepts and skills, okay, discussing it with their partners. And this is also the phase where cross-curricular activities are useful. What do you mean by cross-curricular activities? It could be making connections now with scientific concepts with other disciplines, like connecting the scientific concept to mathematics, connecting the scientific concepts to arts, connecting the scientific concept to technology. You know, these are all allied sciences, right? They're allied. So we can connect already. So this is in the phase where cross-curricular activities can be done. So what is the outcome of this phase? The students have a broader and more generalized understanding of the concepts, skills, and processes. So it's a broader understanding. Why? It's already involving cross-curricular activities. So their ideas regarding the skills, the concepts are already broader. That's why we call it elaborate or extend. We're extending what they know about it. And of course, the last phase is evaluate. Okay? So I'm sure you know what you mean by evaluation. No? You would want to observe the extent of what they have learned. So you observe the students' knowledge and skills, application of new concepts, and a change in thinking. Now, in the evaluation phase, it's not only us as teachers who will be assessing their learning. The students can self-assess themselves. Self-assessment may be done. You can do formative assessment, no? Or you can do summative assessment. Okay, so when you do formative, what do you do? The evaluation might be in the form of informal observations, no? Informal notes or informal questions kasi formative lang yon. Or if you would want to have what we call a really formal assessment, you can do summative assessment. Okay. So what is the outcome of this evaluation phase? Determine how the class and individual students are progressing. So in this phase, you can now find out how the students are progressing. Now they are trying to evaluate themselves. And so once the evaluation is done, then of course the following meeting when you will be having your class again, you will know where you will be able to start. Alam niyo na kung saan na ninyo i-start naman yung discussion niyo. So, probably the questions that would be asked is, what scientific thinking needs improvement? What new conceptual understandings have they developed? No? So, you can ask several questions to yourself to really determine how far they have progressed in the concept or the skill that you would want them to develop. And so, in summary, you have here the 5 Is, the definitions are there, and we have the teacher behavior. I don't know if you can read it, but let me read some. And the last column is on the student behavior. So for the teacher behavior, your role during the engagement is to motivate, to create interest, to tap into what students know or think about the topic, and raise questions, encourage responses. The student behavior under the engage, you will have attentive in listening, ask questions, demonstrates interest. No? Because engagement is creating interest. So they should demonstrate interest. And then respond to questions. In the explore, what is the role, the behavior of the teacher? The teacher is the facilitator. So if she's the facilitator, she only observes and listens to the students as they interact with one another. And during this time, since the teacher is the facilitator, the teacher can ask inquiry-oriented questions and give time for students to think and reflect about the concept. In the exploration phase, the teacher can also encourage cooperative learning. No? So that can also be done there. And for the student behavior, during the exploration phase, the students conduct activities, predicts, and forms hypotheses or makes generalization. And the students at this point is a good listener. Why? The teacher is facilitating and asking questions. No? Shares ideas and suspends judgment, records observations and or generalizations, and then discuss tentative alternatives. Then for explanation, the teacher encourages students to explain their observations and findings in their own words. Provides definitions, new words, and explanations, listens and builds upon discussion from students, asks for clarification and justification, accepts all reasonable responses. So there's no wrong answer, okay? And then for the student behavior, the student explains, listens, defines and ask questions, uses previous observations and findings, provides reasonable responses to questions, interacts in a positive, supportive manner. For the extension or elaborate, the teacher uses previously learned information as a vehicle to enhance additional learning. Okay? And we have also the teacher encourage students to use terms and definitions previously acquired. And for student behavior, applies new terms and definitions, uses previous information to probe or ask questions. And of course, for evaluation, we know now what the teacher does. And for student behavior, they should demonstrate an understanding or knowledge on concepts and skills. And of course, they have also to evaluate their own progress. So what are some of the activities? No, I will not read what the teacher does and what the student does because I have mentioned some already previously. But what are some of the activities? I'm talking now about activities. So what are some of the activities that you can have under its phase? For engage, you can have demonstration, reading, free writing, analyzing a graphic organizer, or showing the KWL, you know, the KWL, what they want to know, the knowing, what they want to know, and what they would want to learn. And of course, brainstorming. For exploration, they can perform and investigate, read authentic resources to collect information, solve a problem, or construct a model. For explanation, what are some of the suggested activities? Student analysis and explanation. Supporting ideas with evidence, may evidence. Structured questioning, reading and discussion. Teacher explanation, thinking skill. Activities such as comparing, classifying, especially in biology, comparing the algae and the fungi, no? Okay, or classifying those different materials that you have, classifying them, or even error analysis. For extension, what are some of the activities you can give to your students? Problem solving, decision making, these are already on the higher thinking skills, okay? Experimental inquiry, think skill activities. Also comparing, classifying, applying. And the last, evaluate. What are some of the suggested activities? I placed there any of the above because you can use them in your evaluation. And of course, in the evaluation, you have to develop a scoring tool or rubric. It's not always grading them 85, 90, 75, 76. But if you have a scoring rubric, the students will be able to find out where they can improve. So in your scoring system, probably you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first one, maybe answers only part of the question, numbered. You may develop your own scoring rubric. And then what else? You can have performance assessment. So it's not only a written exam, a paper and pencil exam, but you can even have oral performance exam. Okay, produce a product, journal entry, or portfolio. Okay, now I'm going to show you a sample science investigation. You may develop your own sample. Okay, so sample science investigation for pre-kindergarten to grade 3, you may frame up questions, testable questions, prediction, the procedures that would be done, directions, the materials, the variables that you would want to have for study, data collection, repeated or multiple trials. You may put there what you would want the students to find out. And then, of course, at the last part, they may put their conclusion regarding what they have found out and communicate and discuss results. Importante yung dissemination. So they can disseminate. Later on, I will tell you, especially when we talk about strategies in science instruction, on how this can be done also. Okay? So share the findings with others for critical analysis, peer review, conference presentation, etc., and discuss conclusions with supporting evidence. This one is also a sample science investigation for grades 4 to 6. You will notice that the contents are still the same, but this time, at the first part, we had what we call testable questions. Why? They cannot understand yet what we mean by hypothesis. No? So we would say, oh, these are the questions that I would want you to test. No? So just testable questions. And then for grades 4 to 6, then we can already have testable questions, prediction, they have there the hypothesis, and of course the procedures would still be the same as what you have in the lower grades. Then you will have your conclusion, and of course the last part again is communicating and discussing results. Okay? Now, in the next slide, I have here prepared a template for the 5E instructional model. You may have your own lesson plans, no? Lesson plan or course syllabus or course outline. But what I am trying to emphasize here is that in each of the phases, I'm sure you have the essential outcome, the objectives and all those, but in the engagement phase, okay, in the engagement phase, saan ba yung engagement phase dyan? Ay, wala. Okay? Anyway, in the engagement phase, you have there the different activities, no? But in the next column, you will find out that there is a checklist. So, it's there where you will be able to check, no? Students' knowledge, did the students retrieve knowledge or ideas, preconceptions from long-term memory? Did they express interest? Did they express curiosity? That is a checklist to let you find out, you as a teacher will find out whether you have met the objectives for the engagement phase. And then you also have a checklist for the exploration phase. You also have a checklist for the explanation phase, and even in the recording. So you will see here that in the checklist, you yourself as a teacher will be checking to find out if you have met your objective in that specific phase. Okay? So there are several strategies you can employ in your classroom wherein you can integrate or incorporate the 5E instructional model. There are so many effective classroom strategies, okay? But I did not put them, even if I will not mention them to you already. You have finished your elementary, in your degree programs, you have already the learners. Bring dull academic concepts to life with visual and practical learning experiences. So what can you use here? With interactive whiteboard to display photos, video clips, as well as encouraging your students to go out when they do classroom experience or going to field trips. That's visualization. Cooperative learning. So in this case, the students with mixed abilities can work together in groups and whole class activities. Sometimes in the cooperative learning, I use even the jigsaw puzzle. Even in college, I use the jigsaw. And you know what? It's very effective. There was a time I even used the pera o bayong in the TV. I used that even. No, you know the pera o bayong when I use that in class. It's really noisy, but it's academic noise, no? And you enjoy. And that was done when I did that. That was in my, now that I'm teaching, even in college, I did that. So you can, if college students and I myself enjoy, your elementary or even your high school students would also enjoy that, no? Under cooperative learning. So solving mathematical puzzles, conducting scientific experiments, and acting out short drama sketches are just few examples of how cooperative learning can be incorporated into classroom lessons. Inquiry-based. These are, of course, thought-provoking questions. Okay, these are inquiry-based, and the teacher will have to pose thought-provoking questions which will inspire the students to think for themselves and become more independent learners. Okay? So we encourage our students to ask questions. Okay, the Socratic method, di ba? Question and answer. Okay. Inquiries can be science or math-based. Pinagsama ko dyan kasi magkapatid nga. Such as, why does my shadow change size? Or is the sum of two odd numbers always an even number? No? So these are inquiry questions, science or math-based. And then we have differentiation. You know what differentiation is, no? You try to differentiate the learning abilities of your students. And also, you as teachers would differentiate your teaching basing on the abilities of your students. Okay, so you have to assign classroom activities according to the student's unique learning. So kayo, ang inyong style ay ganito. Okay, and then you group them, and later on, they will be able to share ideas also. Okay, this can involve handing out worksheets that vary in complexity to different groups of students, or setting up a range of workstations around the classroom which contain an assessment of tasks for students to choose from. Technology. This is another method. Of course, we are very much acquainted with this, especially when we had the online learning. No? Okay, it's one way also of actively engaging our students, especially now that we are in the 21st century. Remember when the fourth IR, you know the fourth IR? Technology is very, what they call this, common there. In fact, I am thinking if we are now following the fourth IR and technology, Israel, remember, artificial intelligence, even teachers, there will be no more teachers, there will be no more cashiers or what, because everything will already be digitized. Mo? Okay, so technology, but of course, it's still different for us as Adventist educators, because later on you will find out that our goal is not only, as you know, for education, Adventist education, our goal is not only to prepare our students for this world, but more in the world to come, okay? So, technology. And then behavior management. Oh, this is, this one is very, what they call this? Sometimes difficult to utilize, no? Behavior management, implementing a very effective behavior management strategy is crucial to gain students' respect. Especially in high school, kung minsan kung ang ilang i-distribute mo ang result ng quiz nila, zero ang nakukuha, anong ginagawa? Kinakrampol yung paper, iniitsa kung sino yung gusto nilang iniitsahan, di ba? May mga ganitong mga behavior management. Sa elementary naman, I had experience, no? The students, the pupils were saying, "Ma'am, ang baho, ma'am." Sabi ko, "Anong ang baho?" Sabi naman ng mga estudyante, "Ma'am, ang baho." Sabi ko, "Bakit?" "Ma'am, may bahong tae." Sino bang nagtae? Grade 1, ha? Sino bang nagtae? "Ma'am, ang baho talaga, ang ingay na ng room." And so what happened? I said, "Sino ba talagang nagtae?" I went around, you know what I did? Ha? Isang experience lang yun. You know what I did? Inaamoy yung puwet. Sino ba? Ay, talaga ito. And I will go out. I will have to go out and what? Ako pa ang maghugas ng kanilang puwet. Elementary, grade 1 at that. I don't know if I have told my husband about this experience. But with the various experience that you have, sometimes it's difficult to manage behaviors. No? I think this is one of the most difficult. But, of course, in the classroom, you can manage, no? You can manage the behavior of your class. Noisy students, disruptive activities, you can do that. You can manage that if you what? You include fun and interactive reward charts for your students. Okay? So you have to plan for the activities. Okay? I'm sure you know that. Then professional development, this is for us as teachers. We engage in regular professional development programs so that we can also enhance our teaching and learning. Learning never stops. Okay? So we have to engage ourselves. That's why we have seminars, continuous professional development, no? Ano pa? We attend conferences, we present papers. This is one way of developing also ourselves, no? So we can attend sessions which include learning about new educational technologies, online safety training, and of course, gain advice on how to use the use of teaching assistants. Then we have modeling. Okay, we understand this, what we mean by modeling. We show the example, okay? This will provide students with both a visual and verbal example of what they will be expected to do. So what is your role as a teacher? You demonstrate. You show the students how to complete an activity or assignment. Do not say, okay, let's mount this specimen on the microscope. Mismo pala na ikaw nga teacher, hindi mo ma-mount. Paano ka nag-model? Di ba? Modeling. Or let's say, mga simple scientific activities or experiments in the classroom. I-model natin. Actually, that is one of the drawbacks that we have now in the pandemic for us as science teachers kasi may laboratory subjects tayo, di ba? Paano tayo makapag-model? Online lang, tinitingnan lang nila. Or mag-simulations lang tayo, tinitingnan lang nila. Pero paano natin makita yung hands-on? No, hindi natin sila talaga may pa-hands-on. Meron naman sila talagang nakikita, pero walang hands-on. No? Okay, so we as teachers should demonstrate how to complete the steps of the task through video. Video kasi nga online. Pero, again, we are now moving to the face-to-face. Our role as teachers, to model our students is already very obvious during that time. Experiential learning, students will, of course, experience what they have been learning. So it says here, it's the process of learning by doing. Engaging the students in direct or hands-on experiences. So may hands-on experience na nila. And reflections, which are tied to real-world problems and situations. Okay? Example of experiential learning, ano yon? Going to the zoo, learning through observations and interactions, pupunta sa planetarium, no? Okay, experiential learning, they will experience. It's not only reading a book about animals. They should also experience. So, dalhin ninyo sila sa zoo, or if you're talking about plants or ecology, dalhin ninyo sila sa garden. If you're talking about butterflies, baka may butterfly garden, no? Okay, so you can have that. And then, of course, student-led discussions. Students are thinking actively in peer-to-peer discussions. There's interaction between students. Okay, so it's the student who will lead out. And then we also have class discussions. Of course, in class discussion, your goal is to get students to practice thinking about the concept or the course material. And again, as I said, our role as a teacher is to be a facilitator. Okay? And then, of course, graphic organizers can be used. I'm very fond of this. No? Even when I teach college anatomy and physiology especially, I never get rid of this graphic organizer, whatever topic that I have. No? So, graphic organizer, this is a visual display to demonstrate the relationship between facts, ideas, and concepts. Now, I'm sure you know what graphic organizer is all about. And of course, the last but not the least is, which I'm presenting to you, is the lesson objective transparency. Okay? When you give a concept or a skill, you should be transparent on what your objective is or what your goal is. Okay? So, state the lesson goals or objectives. So, you can announce it or write it on the board, make it simple for the students to understand. And, of course, they will know what they will be working towards and what they should know by the end of the class. Why? Because you have set the goals for them. It's clear on their part. It's simple. They've understood it. And they will know what they will be working towards to. Okay? So, the question is, what do you think is the most appropriate teaching strategy? Okay? Is there what we call the best or the most appropriate teaching strategy? None. There is no best or most appropriate teaching strategy. Okay? The strategies that, the best method or strategy for teaching a particular subject is, we cannot say, differentiation is the best. What else? Class discussion is the best. Okay? Why? What may have been effective in teaching the same topic in the past may not prove as effective the current year. Considering the what? Considering the changes in the present teaching learning situation. So, we as teachers must be cautioned not to use a single method for a long period of time. In fact, I did not put here the lecture method. Hindi na siya ginagamit masyado. If possible, wala nang lecture method, kaya hindi ko linagay dyan, no? So, we as teachers must be cautioned not to use a single method for long periods of time to the exclusion of other equally effective procedures. New ways of investigating will always arouse the interest and enthusiasm of our students, and therefore, active participation in pursuing the lesson is guaranteed. These are some of the teaching strategies that I have applied. No, variedly I have applied this, and I'm sharing this. I did not share the rest of the strategies. If you read books, there are so many, but I did not include them, the fact that I have not proven them myself, but you can read them myself. So, but you can read them for yourselves. Okay, now I'm moving to the second part, which I mentioned to you a while ago. Maybe for a few minutes, I will just give you an overview of what the IFL is all about. The IFL has been, how many years na? Matagal na yun na IFL, no? So siguro memorize na rin ninyo, but there's no harm in reminding. The Bible says, remember nga, no? Okay, and then after a few slides, I am moving now to the strategies on how we integrate IFL in our science instruction. Okay, so strategies in the integration of faith and learning. The integration of faith and values with teaching and learning is a deliberate and systematic process of approaching the entire educational enterprise, both curricular and co-curricular, from a biblical perspective. In a Seventh-day Adventist setting, its aim is to ensure that by the time the students complete their studies, they will have freely internalized beliefs and values and a view of knowledge, life, and destiny that is Bible-based, Christ-centered, service-oriented, and kingdom-oriented. You can see three figures, different models there. No? One circle and then another circle. There's really a complete delineation. That's isolation. The second one is interaction. You can see the next one there, we have what we call integration. No? Yung dalawa. Okay. So teachers integrate faith and values with teaching and learning approach their subjects from a biblical Christian worldview perspective, discovering in their subject matter the themes and issues that naturally allow for an explicit connection to be made between the curricular content. So I'll be discussing on curriculum content later, and the Christian faith, beliefs, and values. Teachers highlight these connections in their course plans, lectures, course assignments, class discussions, thought questions and examinations, and other learning experiences with the goal of leading their students to develop their own Bible-based view of knowledge, values, life's purpose, and destiny. In addition, teachers commit themselves to provide attractive models of Adventist thinking and behavior in their interaction with students within and outside the classroom. According to Dr. Taylor, I'm sure you know that, there are 4 classifications of instructional strategies in the IFL. What are those classifications? I'm sure the SPUC faculty had their colloquium, and I think IFL was one of the topics, right? So what are the four instructional strategies? Now, the classification of what are the 4 classification of the 4 instructional strategies in IFL? Anybody? The acronym, what is the acronym? The acronym of the 4 classifications. The acronym is CICE, C-I-C-E. Ano yung CICE? Ano yon? Siguro mag-ano ako ng parang, meron ba kayong prize dyan? Meron. Oh, ano ba yung CICE? Oh, ano ba yung CICE? 11 o'clock pa man ang oras. 'Di ba? May 30 minutes pa tayo. So, siguro mag-ano lang tayo ng konti. No, ano ba yung CICE na 4 classifications? Wala. Yung taga-SPUC na nag-IFL sa kanilang colloquium. Ay, wala rin doon? Ay, wala. Okay. Sayang yung price. Kumuha pa naman si pastor ng price na. Ano kaya yung price? Sige, isa-isahin na lang natin, no? Okay, let's have the 4 classifications. Ayan. Contextual, illustrative, conceptual, and experiential. And under these 4 classifications, ang contextual, tactical, ornamental, environmental. Sa illustrative naman, we have analogous. Meron talaga, sayang. Anyway, later, I will ask you a question. Baka magamit natin yan. Okay, so illustrative, we have analogous, narrative, exemplary. For conceptual, we have textual, thematic, valuative. And then experiential, we have personal, interrelational, and declarative strategies. Okay? So there are 4 approaches. Contextual, illustrative, conceptual, experiential. And then for each of these 4 approaches, you have there the different strategies. So tatlo-tatlo na. Okay. So ano yung nasa contextual? Himay-himayin natin. Okay? So for contextual, let's talk about each of these strategies. Now, tactical methods. Ano yung tactical? They are primarily descriptive. It may include the word Christian or identify the institution as belonging to a particular denomination. So, yung pangalan nyo na, it could be done in labels, no? Pangalan ng school. Just like, for example, Adventist University.